All right. It is the fourth Wednesday, and I am here to answer any questions anyone has. For those that don't know, my name is Whitney. I'm with Buckman Best Behaviors. And all right. It is the fourth Wednesday. There we go. Now, basically, all I do is I am here every fourth Wednesday just to answer anybody's questions regarding animals, animal behavior, pet training, dog training, especially, uh, or anything really animal related. If you have any questions that you might have, go ahead, throw those into the chat, and I'll be happy to answer them. We've actually been quite busy here at Buckman Best Behaviors. A lot of puppies needing some training lately. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. If you just want to say hi, also appreciate that, to know that you're out there. It's kind of hard to tell exactly who's all here when the with in the ether here, just stuck in our little office. We got Oscar here on the dog bed behind me. How you doing, big guy? All right. So this is the end of September. We're actually just approaching fall. One of the things that we're running into a lot of, especially as time goes on, I've been talking about it almost at every one of these lately because it is an important subject, is what we call the COVID puppies. And trainers are starting to just refer to them. It's just because during this time, obviously, people are. Actually, I just realized I forgot to turn on my lighting, but people have puppies and they're not able to socialize them like they normally would, just because of, well, the situation as it is right now. And because of that, we are starting to get some behaviors where some dogs are getting a little bit more nervous around strangers and the like. Let's see. There we go. Excellent. Now I'm all well lit up. So, some of the things you can do to do that, to help with that, is to still, while you might not be able to have as many guests over, try to take them on walks outside where they will see people, where it's nice and safe to do so. The main thing is that they need is just to see that there's lots of different stimulations going around, and they don't have to react to every single one out there. Looks like we have one person in the chat currently. Feel free to say hi if you're out there. All right. Now I do this every fourth Wednesday to I'm happy to answer any questions. Oh, hey Meg, how I believe you're in Illinois, if I recall, at this point in time. I hope everything's going well out there. Meg was a former client that was in Scott City. I do travel around, actually up to about 150-mile radius of Garden City, Kansas. There is a send all the pup love too. Excellent. I send the love back that way. Excellent. Yeah, she was a client up in Scott City, but has since moved to other locations. But we were happy to help work with a few little behaviors. Oftentimes, when I'm working with dogs, I work with a lot of basic obedience, and then also I do specialize in anxiety and aggression or reactivity issues that people might be having with their dogs as well. So, yeah, I kind of custom mic every session to the individual dog in front of me. It's part of the animal behavior analysis is a methodology with regards to that. They're getting excited about something. Let's see if we can get them down here. they're interested in the bedrooms at this point in time, so I'll just leave them out there. As I was saying, um, customize every training plan to the individual animal in front of me. It's kind of part of the methodology or mind of animal behavior analysis. You kind of look at the individual animal in front of you. It's one of the core principles of that, not the breed or the species, because sometimes when you look at the breed or species, you might be missing something because this one might not fall into that perfect bell curve or the perfect image of whatever that breed of dog is, for example. So I like to work quite a bit with specializing whatever it is that we need to make to give your pet the best success with regards to it. All right. Does anybody have any questions? If you have any questions, feel free to throw those into the chat and I'd be happy to answer them. All right. Things are good, except Max has decided to eat his crate. Oh, no. Which is awesome because he's perfectly fine with the crate situation until people are gone. So not sure what the whole thing is going to end up. Let's see. If you give me, yeah. So you might switch to baby gating. You might switch to a better crate. Some of the real high-end crates can go $500 to $1,000 pretty easily. And I do sometimes suggest those for certain individual dogs just for their safety's sake, as well as being able to actually keep them maintained and contained in there. Now, the other thing we could do, since you're no longer in this area, well, I do online video consultations if you wanted to take advantage of that. I think you have to look at the records. You might have, yeah, exactly. Sometimes that it is worth it just for, even if with the high cost. There is one that I looked at in the zoo that kind of converted regular crates into something a little bit more secure. However, honestly, I think you're probably just going to need something better all around. My guess is he's eaten the. Yeah, if you want, we can do some online training. I do that, and actually, I can't remember exactly where you're at. I'd have to look in the records. You might actually have a session or two left that we could possibly utilize. But yeah, as long as you have an access to Zoom or something like that, I do also give video consultations. It's a little bit different since I can't interact with the animal, so I have to rely on you, and you have to just follow my guidance through the whole process. Another thing we can do is I could look into the area to see if there's any trainers that I would recommend. If you want to shoot me an email with your address, I can look around and contact some of my contacts around to see if they know anybody that would utilize a methodology that you'd prefer. Zoom, yes. A lot of people don't realize I actually, before I did this, I worked at the zoo, and one of the things I did was distance learning at the zoo. And so I actually was all prepared for, I guess, this new age that we live in, because I already knew Zoom. I actually got the facility I was on previously at, got them using Zoom. So I'm actually very well versed in how to use that technology, and in particular, how to use that technology to teach other people. It's still something that we have to tweak and maneuver because you have to have a camera on your end so I can see you working with the animal. We have to obviously have a good internet connection so I can see it at a decent speed. If I don't see the full interaction, I can miss something or something along those lines. But in general, a lot of people have had very high success with the Zoom meetings as well. In fact, some of my distance clients that was just talking about this today, some of them, it gets pretty costly for me to travel 70 or 100 miles out to them every time. So what we might do is do a live face-to-face and then supplement that with some online consultations just to make it go stretch the dollar as far as we can, and also just make sure that we're all set up for this biggest success in the future with that. Looks like we got a few more people in. If you have any questions about animals, whether it's animal training or animals in general, I've been in the zoological field. I've been in the animal training field for quite some time, pretty much my whole life, one way or another. So feel free to throw it into the chat. If you just want to say hi and you know me, go ahead and say hi as well. So yeah, another thing for you, Meg, that we could look into. It's the problem with when you're not the training an animal when you're not there is we do have to take advantage of sometimes the technology. Something that you could do is they do have little training things. There's the Pet Tutor is one that I know of that has a lot of features, but it's the more expensive version of it, where basically it will give a reward when the animal does certain things while you're not there, and that can have a calming effect in the crate better than the Kong or just the simple toy. Because if you look at the actual behavior of the animal, usually that Kong, even if it's filled with peanut butter, is only 15 minutes, but you're gone. Only 15 minutes of interaction at best, and then you're gone for another 4 hours. So these remote systems actually can help alleviate that. So basically, you can program it to just either drop a treat into the crate every 15 to 30 minutes, or with the Pet Tutor, you can also train it. You can also program it so that when it hears quiet, i.e., the dog's not barking, it'll drop a treat in. For basically, and thereby rewarding calm behavior, and thereby making calm behavior the go-to for that animal. And that can go a long way with that type of, sounds like you are having some type of separation anxiety with Max, which is reasonable. It, especially if you went from, whether this is a big COVID situation as well, where a lot of people keep going home, getting sent home to work for a long period of time, and then they go back to work, regular hours at work. But while they were home, they never kenneled their dog, and the dog now thinks that that's the way it should be, and gets very upset when everyone has to go back to work. So what I'm telling people to help alleviate a situation like that causing a separation anxiety or kennel anxiety is to actually get your animal used to it before you have to go back to work. So yes, you're home all day. Maybe you should kennel your dog up for an hour or so while you're there, just so they still are in the habit of, okay, I'm getting kenneled. It's not a big deal. And that way they're used to it and they're desensitized to it when you head out. I do like that. I do like the Pet Tutor method versus the bark collar methodology, because the bark collar punishes for barking. And unfortunately, it's usually just a decibel level thing. So a car backfiring would technically set it off. Those types of things. They've gotten better over the time, so they don't set off as easily if you buy some of the more high-end stuff. But you can have a few different issues with that as well. But with the reward system, what you do is you're rewarding quiet, and then quiet is just the go-to because they get rewards periodically. Maybe every 5 to 10 minutes of quiet, the treat thing pops out a reward. And eventually they just become calm because that comes out periodically. Yep, and I also took away his front windows recently. They were guarding too much, so it's not a wall of curtains, backfiring quite a bit. Oh, you took away the front windows recently. They were guarding too much, so it's not a wall of curtains. I think I need a little bit more explanation. I think I know it's... they were guarding too much, so it's now a wall of curtains. Oh, okay, gotcha. Now I get it. Okay, so now it's a wall of curtains. Okay, so okay, I think I know what one thing that you're running into is very similar to our Kansas house. So sometimes people like to let the dogs look outside. That can be counterproductive in a lot of ways. If you let the dogs kind of just watch the outside in the neighborhood, then they also learn that they can guard and bark at the things outside, and then they get that endorphin rush, which self-teaches that behavior to do that. Hey, plus he can't guard his house. Yes. So what's happening I'd have to see it for myself, but I'm pretty sure based on your description, I got an idea. So what is happening is they were getting an endorphin rush for barking and yelling at everything outside. It goes away. Obviously, they're awesome. They scared away the thing, whatever the thing is, the mailman, the whatever. So yeah, so they get all excited by that. The thing is, now you've removed that self reinforcement from it, which you need to, because if they keep doing it, it's going to snowball and just get worse and worse and worse with time. But what you might be experiencing is what's known as an extinction event. They used to get that endorphin rush for barking at the people. You didn't control it. Normally, when we see an extinction event, it's when we're giving rewards for something, and then we stop giving rewards for something. They will then do that behavior way more in hopes of getting that reward that they've learned works at least once every so often. So what they're basically doing is they're kind of getting worse. It's like a tantrum that kind of gets worse before it gets better. So extinction can work. It's going to be frustrating for a while. What I would say to do is whenever they start going, actually your pups, if they still know target, what I would say is try to redirect them away from the wall. Use high-end reinforcers, because whatever it is, if it's a very long and powerful emotional reaction, you're going to need higher-end reinforcers, maybe turkey or chicken or something. And you might need it just to make sure that it's around. And you're going to need to reward them. Just call them away with a target or something along those lines, away from the stimulus outside until they come to you instead of barking there. Because basically what we're doing is we're going to create a new behavior instead of just trying to ignore them or trying to remove the reinforcement of them barking at the thing outside. Because what happened, for those to understand extinction, there's Skinner back in the 40s, I believe, did a bunch of experiments, and I can't remember if he coined the phrase, but he definitely discovered the phenomenon. He basically, what happened was they'd have these pigeons, and the pigeons would push a button. Actually, I'll come back to that. The pigeons would touch a button, and they'd get a reward. Well, then eventually they stopped rewarding the pigeons. When they were getting rewarded, I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's something like the pigeons would be like, push the button maybe 10 to 60 times a minute. But then when they stopped rewarding them, the pigeons started pushing the button 500 times because they're like, I should be getting a reward. So it just keeps going and going and going. That's an extinction event. You had a reward, and now you stopped rewarding it. Now, we don't necessarily control the rewards. The environment sometimes does, in which case a dog barking out the window, it's kind of a self-rewarding behavior. They get their endorphin rush from within themselves. They just enjoy it. It's what they're meant to do. So they just enjoy doing that behavior. Then when you get rid of the curtains, they can't see and get that full fulfillment. So then then the behavior actually will get worse before it gets better. So that, I think, is what you're running into. If he wants to shake, and I'll go to your question. Lady loves the target. Max would rather shake hands. Lily knows her name, and that's about it. She tries, though. Okay. So you can either just really work with Max to try to get him to do it. You're going to need high-end reinforcement. You're going to need to do it in a low stimulus environment with him at first, and then add stimulus later. Or just accept that shake. But if he comes up to target, the main thing is you can get him away from, like, if he's pointing this way, you can make him turn in that way. Because what you want to do is reward him from avoiding the stimulus that's in the other direction. That's what you want to avoid. So that's the main goal. And you might have to do some more experimenting, because if I recall, Max was more fickle with his treats. Might have to do more experimenting, in which case you take 2 or 3 treats, put them in like little plates in front of him, and whichever one he eats first, that tells you a preference, kind of. You're going to have to do this experiment a few times, because there is a thing called directional preference. i.e., an animal might like three things evenly, but it always eats the one on the left first, and that would be its directional preference rather than the actual reward or treat preference. So you have to do the experiment 2 or 3 times with the treats in different locations, and then swap them out for different treats, and then whichever one he consistently keeps going for above the others, especially if it breaks his directional preference, then you know that that is the reward. What you really want to look for, what I was just talking to somebody else about, usually whale line is something when I'm discussing when um, a dog is doing problem behaviors or is scared, something along those lines. That's the wide eyes, when you see the whites of their eyes and their eyes go a bit wide. Really, all that means is a high point of stimulation. So usually I'm discussing that when an animal is scared or upset. However, we also discuss it when they get overexcited, which is what I look for sometimes when I am going after new treats. So if I pull out a treat and I see the dog go, then I know I've got onto the right track with that reward. And that might actually be able to compete with whatever it is I'm trying to compete against, whether it be the mailman outside, the rabbit that running across the street, those types of things. All right. Well, I hope everything's going good. Well, up in was it Indiana or Illinois? I want to say you're in Illinois now, but hope everything's going well in your new adventure up there with the whole pack and everything. And then if anybody else has any questions or comments or something they want to say, just go ahead, throw those into the chat. That would right there. Be happy to answer them. It can be things related to pet training. It can be things related to okay, I have knowledge of all things animals. What's my favorite low-calorie treat? Max may be a bit chunky these days. Okay. I actually, okay, so I'm not a nutritionist. In the animal field, people like to. There's one issue that kind of recurs in the animal field, and that is it's because there's not enough animal people, I think, to the needs of the communities. So they tend to put all the knowledge on everyone. So in the past, vets were also asked about training stuff, things of that nature. They're still asked about that, but they don't necessarily know about. I know a little bit about nutrition, but I would not call myself knowledgeable. I don't consider myself knowledgeable, but generally, if I'm going low treat, I would actually go something along the lines of boiled chicken. You want to avoid the greasy stuff. Chicken is a little bit greasy, but you can give it in small doses. And in small doses, it's high protein, fairly low calorie substance. So I would actually go with just straight boiled chicken myself. Obviously no skin, blah blah blah, all that. But really anything that you can break down into very small pieces so that they get the flavor of it. And if he is gaining weight, then I would put him on a diet, and that should actually increase his chances for wanting to train. It really, in the end, if you're using treats as a reward versus a toy ball or something along those lines. Central Illinois. Yep, that's right. I was right. Okay. Love barking at deer and the new kitten friend. Oh yeah, wildlife and city dogs going to wildlife is always interesting. When I moved here to Garden, we had multiple acres, and then we moved here, and one of our dogs did start barking quite a bit, simply because, well, she was not used to having people come very close. So when the people were walking on the sidewalk, we had to do some reactivity issues with her when we first moved here. Emily Reed. Okay. Hey, Emily. Any more tips on how to help your pup retrust or like a person? Okay. Actually, I'm working with somebody else right now with that. So let me see. I missed another thing from Meg. Oh, perfect. He loves meat before like cookie style treats. And You know, oh yeah. So the cookie style treats are actually higher in calories because they tend to have more carbs. So that's why I tend to go if you, especially if you need to limit calories, go to meat and things like that. Okay, to get an animal, a pup, to trust or like a person. All right. Yes. Um. Oh, you can keep hogging the comments all you want. We'll just bounce back and forth. Diesel's still having an issue with my mom. She gets frustrated way too easy with him, and I know he senses it. Okay, that is one of the problems. Okay, so the easiest or the best thing for someone to do is you need it does take a ton of patience. Unfortunately, it does take a lot of patience. So what I would actually do is I would actually have them toss treats to him. No requirement of him approaching her. I would just let the key thing is let him choose to come closer, but don't make the reward be required. Because if you make the reward be required, you could set him up for failure because he wants that reward and he might push himself further than he really should go. And then he'll get more nervous. And that's sometimes when bite situations happen. You're not physically restraining him up close to the person, but that drive for the treat kind of creates that same effect. So really, it just comes down to patience. And you might have hit the nail on the head that if they get frustrated, he's going to see that reaction from her, and he does know. Dogs can read that. We've bred them to read our own body signals. So the main thing is just every time she comes by, she gives him a treat. She just tosses one. We call it a non-contingent reinforcer. There's no actual behavior associated with him getting that reward. But what's going to happen is he's going to see her and start expecting that reward, and you just toss it, and maybe every few minutes she just tosses one around, and he's going to want to start hanging around her and just make it. He's just going to enjoy it a lot more. The so with him enjoying that more than he should open up over time. However, there are some times where it's just like having two people. Sometimes it just doesn't mesh. We can get him to the point where he's comfortable with her, doing things chill with her, but he might never get to the point where he's like, "Oh, you're my favorite person." But that's not really what we. That would be a more unrealistic goal. It's like saying, it's like trying to get somebody who was arachnophobic to like spiders. We don't care that we don't get them to like the spider. We get them to tolerate the spider. Does that make sense? So, but yes, it takes a lot of trust, a lot of time. And if she is getting frustrated, then he definitely is sensing it. And the way I like to say it is whenever I start seeing that in a session, I cut the session. I'm done. I'm like, if somebody's getting frustrated or angry, training's over because you're not going to get to where you need to get to. And then what you're going to do is actually set yourself back. So as soon as anybody in the situation is getting frustrated, then I would back off. Now, if I recall, Emily, remind me, did your mom, was she one of the ones that was putting him in the kennel? Because if I recall, he did not, that was his issue, if I recall. He did not like the kenneling process, and she had to either let him out or put him back in or something along those lines. Yes, yeah. Yeah, that it goes a long, long way. So a lot of people want that like quick fix, but we're dealing with a brain, and it just takes a long time. And some dogs are just more trusting up front, and some are not. Okay, yeah. So there could be another association with it, which is, sometimes the caretaker, when you're gone, is perfectly fine, and they go, "Oh, thank God, there's a human." However, I have a feeling he has more of a bond with you So one possible way he's taking it. Now, this isn't a guarantee because obviously I can't go into his brain and read his mind. But one possible avenue he might be looking at it is you go away and this person shows up. So he might put the blame of you going away with her, and just I would actually try to create that bond with her while you're there to prepare for those times that you're gone. If that makes sense, because I have a feeling he's already in a not happy place, and my guess is they don't always come over to take care of him, and then you have to leave for a week, something along those lines, and uh, then his basically trust is damaged because he upset because you're gone in the first place, and then he just sees this other person, um, kind of deal. So basically, I would work on it while you're there, and then have her slowly work with him, and actually go through some of the training, like the regular training stuff that you ask him to do. Have her doing it. Um, yep, no, totally. Yeah. If you need help, let me know. Um, if it's a quick answer, I'll just do it over the phone. If it's something more that we have to do a session on, then we'll do it that way. But it sounds like, honestly, I think, well, we'll see. Really, the main thing is try to get her on board with the training, and obviously be patient. There's one thing I tell people a lot is we have to be actors when we're training, because sometimes we're not as happy about the situation, but we have to exude happiness and confidence to the dog. Whether we actually feel that happiness or confidence is a whole nother situation. So, but yeah, that's definitely a factor, is having to act it out, if you will. All right. Does anybody else have any other questions or comments they want to make? I hope that helped a little bit for you. Do you think it would be beneficial if a few times a week my mom went and let him out over my lunch and I showed up later? Yes, actually, I do. I do. I think that that could potentially have a positive effect on the situation. Um, very much so. I definitely think that if it becomes more routine and also is not associated with you just being gone, I think that will go a long way uh, with helping. Now, obviously, if he starts getting angrier about the situation, then we need to relook at it. But generally, that should be fine. That because she's already learned that he to be let out by the mom and by your mom and such, and he goes back in for her just fine. So I think that that should just be fine. I think the problem is if you leave and then she shows up and then now he knows you're gone for a week and he hates that kind of idea. That might be the situation, or some type of prediction. Basically, he's amping himself up to be angry. It's before you're even gone, kind of deal, just because he's reading into the situation, and he might be using mom as the antecedent or the trigger, leading to those whatever internal thoughts that he's having. Not a problem. Not a problem. All right. Does anybody have any other questions? Just go ahead and throw those into the chat. Yes. Oh wait, no, I did answer the question. It was about food earlier. Yes. All right. If anybody has any questions, go ahead and put those in the chat about maybe you saw something weird an animal was doing on the internet, or maybe you saw a rumor on the internet about animals. I love debunking those. I love debunking falsehoods on the internet. Very much so. All right. Does anybody have any other questions? Go ahead, put them in the chat. If you want to just say hi, go ahead, say hi in there, and let me know how you're doing, what you're doing, how the pups are doing. I'm glad that, for the most part, though, it sounds like Diesel's doing okay. Just not trusting mom at this point in time. All right. If anybody has any questions, we've got about 20 minutes left in here. Just let me know. All right. Hoping everybody is staying safe and sane in ye old 2020. It's just 1 year, but it feels like it's an eternity sometimes. So, as for anybody coming in here, this is my fourth Wednesday. Ask me anything. Just ask whatever you would like, whether it's how I got into the field, whether it's a personal question for me, whether it's a question about a behavior your pet's doing, your neighbor's pet's doing. You saw a squirrel doing something weird. What's that about? Who knows? Go ahead, put that into the chat if you have any of those types of questions or beyond. If it's within my power, I'd be love to answer those for you. All right. So, for those that don't know, my name is Whitney. I am with Buckman Best Behaviors, and I have been working with animals, pretty much my entire life. I have a degree in animal ecology, specialize in wildlife care, also minored in biology, uh, and I'm continuing my training journeys as every year, and I actually to continue myself and continue growing my abilities and my knowledge, because this is an always changing field with animal care and animal training. I actually some don't realize, but I actually always apprentice under uh, another trainer, generally online, so that way I can get a good vantage point and learn some new things and different philosophies and more angles to look at problems. Because the more ways I can look at the problems, the higher the chance that we can all come to a solution that works best for the family and the dog together. So, if anybody has any questions, go ahead, put those into the chat. I'd be happy to answer them. We'll be on for another 20 minutes or so. One of the things I always am looking for is the thing called the antecedent, the thing that leads before the behavior. That actually tells me a lot more on how I can, uh, how that gives me a much better angle to look at what is actually changing or causing the behavior with the dog. I try to find the exact trigger, because once you figure that out, that actually goes a much further way in alleviating and changing the situation with that animal. For example, actually, I was actually talking about thinking outside the box. One of my clients recently is actually a deaf dog, and generally I use clickers, but clickers aren't magical. They're not a specific thing that's needed. It's just a common tool in the trade for the training. So, but a clicker is a sound, and that doesn't work with deaf dogs. I'm actually thinking about putting together a little video here in the future to discuss how we worked with that. but I actually adapted the clicker training and started using a flashlight actually. So that way, when the dog was looking away, we still had a way to signal that they did something correct, because we'd flash that flashlight in their direction and they'd see the light kind of light up around them, and then they'd go, "Oh, I get a treat. Where's my treat?" So it gave us a way to communicate with the deaf pup, um, who obviously was reacting to different things, and she already was uh, influenced by light. So we were able to use that as an adaptation of the clicker training for that individual dog. But it just goes to show you just got to work a little bit outside the box, and always be looking for a new angle to solve the problem in front of you. All right. Does anybody have any questions? If you have any questions or like to say hi, go ahead, put that into the chat, and I would be happy to answer them. Whether you're commenting on YouTube or if you're watching on Facebook. Just let me know. Oh, I have okay. And, looks like you put it into the chat. Okay, I see that. Sorry, I got a direct message with this question, and I thought this was for something else, but nope. So I have a 5-month-old English bulldog. She acts so aggressive sometimes. How do I get her to be less aggressive? Will she grow out of it? She is stubborn and doesn't listen. LOL. She flat out ignores you with the aggression. I put her in the kennel to settle down. She also is so excited to see others and jumps up on people. All right. I could have stopped that too. Okay. Yes, we can work on that. This is a very common problem with a lot of those small bulldog types, the French bulldogs and the English bulldogs. They just get so excited and worked up about something, whatever that something is. That sometimes changes a little bit, but yeah. So this actually, and I always laugh when I see this, hear the phrase that the dog is stubborn, because it's one of those, as a trainer, it's one of those phrases where it's like, if I had a nickel for every time I heard that. But that doesn't mean to feel bad. Usually what that tells me is that there's a communication breakdown between you and the dog. They're not, a lot of times people think that they should know something, but they don't actually know it. So really what I would do is actually do some training. You first need to put a basic behavior that will allow you to call the dog away from the thing that's bothering it, whether it's a person, a cat, another dog. Usually I start with the target hand gesture, in which case the dog comes up and boops their nose to my hand. I always start with that with every dog I work with. This is a very common thing in the zoo field. That's the first thing we teach a lot of animals. It gives us a way to communicate and ask them to move to a specific spot. With the dogs, especially reactive dogs, it also allows me to make them look the other way. They have to choose between looking at my hand or the thing that they're getting all worked up about, but a treat only happens if they come towards my hand. So I can start working with that to start redirecting them. Now, the thing is, you still have to find a way to keep their interest in you away from that other thing. Usually this will involve high-end rewards, such as chicken, bacon, ham kind of thing, treats that they really want. But there also is a fine line, because you got to reward them for leaving it, but you don't want them to reward every time they start barking at the thing. This process, the sooner you start working on it, the better it is, the better it will be. There's actually fairly complicated, because as I said, you have to first start redirecting them, and it has to be very consistent. And you're going to need to do a number of, in general, honestly, at this age, just 5 months though, I really think just basic obedience goes a long way, because once you start breaking down that communication and the dog starts understanding what you want, what you're actually wanting of them, then they will then things go, just everything kind of clicks together, and you have a lot calmer relationship. Now that doesn't mean that basic obedience will lead to them not reacting towards other things. That might require some desensitizing. Like sometimes we put dogs on leashes and then they have to endure seeing other dogs at a distance, and then we click reward as they redirect towards away from those different things. But that can take time. So this would be kind of a combination. Will she grow out of it? Without guidance, no. Without guidance, the dog will always snowball worse because they're getting some type of endorphin rush from doing that behavior. So in other words, they're self-teaching. They're getting their own reward just by getting to the point. The dog barking at the window, they enjoy it. They enjoy seeing the reaction of the other thing leaving or walking away, and that thereby self trains that behavior to go a little bit to just go a little bit more. The when she sees other people, she's jumping. Actually, that would also be, yeah, this is all basic obedience. So basically it all comes down to what we call differential reinforcements. You have the old behavior and a new behavior. The old behavior you don't want, and you replace it with okay, I can get into that. So you replace it with a behavior you do want. And usually I pick one that's incompatible. So if a dog's jumping up on people, the reason it's jumping is because it gets attention that way. People start focusing or saying its name and talking to it or petting it after it jumps up. So it's learned that doing that gets it what it wants. So what we have to do is stop rewarding that, and then but then reward them for sitting. Ask them to sit, and once they do, then they get rewarded the same rewards that they were looking for the jumping. But they do it by sitting. This can take a little bit of a process. Okay, so shock collars. I don't use shock collars. There's a number of reasons I don't use it. It is what we call it's a punishment based system, and the problem with shock collars, well, really using any aversive, and I don't use choke chains, I don't use shock collars. In fact, my methodologies, the more hands off I can be, the higher the success we can get. Because what I want to do is manipulate the dog to just want to do the behavior. The problem with a shock collar is you're not getting them to not want to do it. You're just getting them to not do it while having this collar on. Because they know when that's on and they know when it's off. So as soon as it's off, all bets are off as well. The other factor with it, using an aversive, is a lot of times I've seen I've seen this a lot lately, especially with certain with individual canine units I've seen in the past, where they overused the shock collar, and what they did was they had to keep upping it, because what happens is the animal becomes desensitized to that pain, so you have to make the pain worse, and then you have to make the pain worse. Well, eventually one of two things is going to happen. Either A, the dog gets desensitized to the point that the tool can't dish out enough pain to even do anything, or B, the tool will eventually injure the dog. Either A, if it doesn't have a safety, most shock collars have a safety setting, so they're not going to cause permanent damage by any means, unless there's like a glitch or a short in it, which I have seen some shorts where the dogs got actually physically burned a few layers of skin. But but with like a choke chain, you technically can put more and more force, but eventually you will injure the dog. So the other issue with I do like that you're using the buzz, and then the thing, literally the buzz is the exact same thing as using a clicker, only reverse. So the click means they did something right, and they get a reward. That's all it means. So they did something right, the click happens, and reward. The buzz, the warning buzz, is they did something wrong, buzz, punishment. It's literally the exact same thing, only on the other end of the spectrum. Now, another problem that you can run into, especially if you're not trained to use them with the correct timing, because whether you're training with positive reinforcement or positive punishment, which it's called positive punishment because you're adding something. In the positive reinforcement, you're adding a treat. In positive punishment, you're adding pain. So to the situation, the pain wasn't there before, you're adding it. So anyway, no, that's a whole other thing into operating condition. But the other thing is, if your timing is off, you can actually create a oh shoot, now I just forgot the word. It's when a superstitious belief. You create a superstitious belief from the animal. And that just means that they're putting an association between two things that's not correct. For example, one client, they used one of those fence shock collars on their dog. It went out into the grass. It hit the thing. Instantly associated all grass with causing the shock. It wasn't the shock collar itself. So that dog stopped urinating and defecating on grass and would only do it on the deck, which is so that would be a superstitious belief. Did the grass cause it? No, but the dog doesn't know that. The dog now believes the grass is bad and causes shocks. So if your timing is off, you can do that. Now, another thing that can happen with positive punishment if the timing is off. Let's say you have a reactive dog and it sees a dog across the street and it starts barking, rah, 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 and then gets shocked or pulled with a choke chain. If the timing is not correct and it's not marked for the exact behavior, they will not associate it with their own behavior going rah, 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 rah. They will associate it with seeing what they see, and what they see is that other dog. So then in their mind, seeing that other dog could potentially mean I'm going to get punished or be given pain, which then makes their fuse shrink. So where they start being reactive to the other dog 20, 30 feet away, it could potentially, now they're reacting 50 feet away because they don't want that dog anywhere near them. Because every time they see a dog, they get shocked or choked. So that is one of the reasons why I don't use that. I actually used to use choke chains and things like shock collars and stuff like that. But throughout my journey, I've stopped using them. And actually, since I really stopped using them when I started specializing in aggression training. Once I started specializing in aggression research, particularly looking into the science and what does actually work, not just what people claim to work, because there's anecdotal stories about everything. But if I can see the stories, yeah. So what I do is I actually reward for the correct behavior instead. I like doing that because it gives them a very specific guide of where to go and what to do, rather than just saying no. So one of the other issues I have with just strictly doing punishing, which yes, it is a method of learning. So I do acknowledge that is a way that animals learn. However, I also take into fact that they have increased chance of aggression, increased chance of superstitious correlations between the dog and what's causing that pain. But when you are told, let's take an example when you're with your boss. Let's say your boss yells at you because they don't like the work that you did. But that's it. That's all they say. No, I don't like what you did. Puts it on your desk, walks away. How do you fix it? You don't know how to fix it because you have not been guided in what direction to go. Okay, I'll get into that here shortly. So you need to show them where to go. If a boss says, "Hey, I didn't like this part about what you did. Can you change it in this direction or this way?" That's much better guidance for you. So that's why I like to teach a dog what to do and not just yell at them to not do something, if that makes sense. Okay, so what I do, I charge my pricing plan is actually more based on I have packages, and it gets cheaper the more we do, at least per session. So if we do one session, it's $100. If we do 3 sessions, it's $250. If we do 6, it's $425. And then if we do 10, it's $600 for that. And then anything beyond 10 is $60 a session. But what a thing that I let people do is we can upgrade as we go. So generally most basic obedience is 3 to 6 sessions. So you can get one session that was 100, and then you're like, okay, I do like this method. Let's upgrade to the 3 package. Then you just pay the difference. So 100 to 250 is 150. Pay that difference. You get the other 2 sessions, and then when we hit the 3, and we're like, you know what, we need a few more. Okay, then we just pay the difference, the 175 to get the other 3 for the 6, etc., etc. So also, if it's online, I do charge a travel fee if people are outside of Garden City or Holcomb, just because of the amount of time and gas it takes to get places. But I do travel up to 150 miles. But that fee is, of course, per session. And then also I charge for online consultations where we can use a Zoom meeting. That's $45 a session. And basically what happens in a session is I show you, I work with the pup, see what's going on. And then after I work with the pup, then I have you work with the pup. The only times that after that, I kind of show you what we're doing, and then I will assign homework. Then we meet up again a week or 2 later, see what's working, what's not working, and we adjust the plan as necessary, add more behaviors if we can, or advance to the next level. Then work with you again to make sure that your timing, because that's actually one thing that, whether you're using a shock collar or clicker training, no matter what, the main thing that they've found that a lot of people have issues with is that timing. So I really work a lot with my clients to understand when they should be doing different things. Like, okay, click now, not now. Okay, that was a little slow. Let's go a little faster. Once you saw that, I see why you clicked there, but let's click actually at this point because that's actually more important in this situation. So these are kind of what the conversations kind of go back and forth with me and the clients. So basically what I do is I teach you how to train your dog. Based on what I see would work best with your animal. Sometimes there's a few times where we'll try something and it's like, that didn't quite work as well with this personality type versus another personality type. Let's try something different, but we'll just adapt the plan as necessary. All right. I hope that answered most of your questions. The barking, if she's barking at other dogs, it's always all about redirection towards you, and she gets treats for redirecting towards you and also being quiet, because being quiet is a behavior. You just got to mark it correctly and let them know. All right. Does anybody else have any other questions? We're about to, what just happened? My computer just decided to go to sleep or something. Anyway, if anybody has any other questions, let me know. And just let me know, and we will we'll put those into the chat. And if actually, I guess it's about time now. So I guess I say goodbye to everybody for now. If you have any other questions, feel free to message me. I'd be happy to answer anything that you have. And if you'd like to book me for my services or have more questions, you can text me, email me, or call me. My number is 620-805-9429. That number again is 620-805-9429. You can message me through Facebook. You can also email me at whitbuckman@bbbehaviors.com. I'm just going to actually drop that into the chat. That is whitbuckman@bbbehaviors.com. There we go. And I'll drop that phone number in there too. There we go. So if anybody does have any questions, or you can just direct message me through Facebook or anything else. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next 4th Wednesday, which should be October 28th. So right around the Halloween time. We'll see what the weather's doing around then. So everybody stay safe. Thanks for coming and visit with me, and I will see you again in the future. All right, bye now.